It started like any ordinary evening in the quiet town of Barela, just 20 kilometers from Jabalpur, Madhya Pradesh. But what happened that night would leave an entire community haunted, and a mother's scream echoing in the stillness of their modest home. A whisper on the phone, a sudden silence, and then nothing. No footsteps, no sounds, no trace. Just a phone call that ended too quickly and a mystery that began far too abruptly. This is not just a story of a girl who vanished, but of secrets buried beneath family honor, societal pressure, and perhaps something more sinister. Deepa Mehra, more commonly known as Babli in her locality, lived in ward number 15 of Barela with her 20-year-old daughter Nisha. Life for them was simple, tight-knit, modest, but peaceful. Deepa's own family was nearby in the village of Tabar Pita. It was from there that she had arranged her daughter's marriage to a young man named Sandeep Jaria. He was a familiar face, someone from the same soil. Trust wasn't hard to come by in such relationships. The wedding was scheduled for March 2022, and the couple-to-be had begun talking regularly on the phone, shy, curious conversations full of youthful anticipation. It was during one of these evening chats, on September 27th, that something unusual happened. Around twilight, as the town settled into its nightly rhythm, Nisha and Sandeep were speaking like always. Then, without warning, Nisha paused. A sound in the veranda, someone approaching. "I think someone just came," she whispered. "I'll call you later." That was the last time Sandeep heard her voice. The line disconnected, and then silence. At first, Sandeep thought nothing of it. Maybe her phone battery died. It happened often. But when hours passed and every call he made went unanswered, anxiety started gnawing at him. Midnight came and went. He tried calling again and again, but the phone remained switched off. His unease turned to dread. He couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. The next morning, Sandeep couldn't sit still. He contacted Deepa to check in on Nisha, but what he heard on the other end left him stunned. Deepa hadn't seen her daughter since the previous night either. When she had returned home late from a relative's place, she found the front gate locked and assumed Nisha had gone to sleep early. She never imagined that her daughter wasn't even inside. Now, alarmed, both families began searching. Neighbors were asked, relatives were phoned, but no one had seen or heard from Nisha. The police were called, and an official missing persons report was filed. But even as authorities began to investigate, there were no immediate leads. No signs of forced entry, no struggle, nothing. The only detail that remained etched in everyone's mind was the final phone call, the subtle panic in Nisha's voice when she said someone might be at the door. Who was it? Did she recognize them? Was it someone she trusted? Or was it the last moment of her life? As the days passed, rumors swirled in Barela. Some speculated that she had eloped. Others whispered about secret affairs or family disputes. But Sandeep refused to believe she had left willingly. She wouldn't just vanish, he insisted. Not like this. Not without telling me. Something's wrong. Then, on the 6th day, hope turned to horror. A body was discovered in the jungle nearby. It was badly decomposed, wrapped in a bedsheet, stuffed into a sack. The hands and legs were tied. There were signs of deep bruises, and the face was beyond recognition. The entire town froze as news spread. It was a nightmare no one had prepared for. Deepa was called to identify the body. What happened at the morgue would stay with her forever. She recognized the earrings. They belonged to Nisha. Her worst fears had come true. Her daughter had not just disappeared, she had been brutally murdered. But the question remained, Who could have done this? And why? Just as the police began piecing things together, new evidence emerged. It wasn't just a random crime. This was personal. Someone who knew the house. Someone Nisha might have opened the door for. Someone who knew exactly when to strike. Who was behind this cruel crime? Was it jealousy, betrayal, a cover-up for something darker? As investigators dove deeper into the lives of those closest to Nisha, shocking secrets began to surface. Secrets that no one in Barela ever thought would see the light of day. But the biggest twist was still to come, because the killer might not have come from outside, but from with what if the person you trusted the most was the one who wanted you gone? What if your killer lived just one wall away? The town of Barela had only just begun to mourn the discovery of Nisha's lifeless body, when new revelations began to unravel the quiet illusions of a seemingly ordinary family. As investigators dug deeper, they weren't just peeling back layers of the crime. They were exposing an entire web of betrayal, jealousy, and horrifying intent that had been festering in silence for years. After Nisha and her mother, Deepa, also known as Babli, were reported missing, the initial police response was slow. Locals grew restless. Relatives filed complaints. Pressure mounted from the community. Why had two women disappeared from their own home without a trace? Why had the local police been so careless? As whispers turned into outrage, law enforcement finally moved. The district superintendent replaced the local officer with a sharp, relentless deputy SP named Apurva Kiladar. That single change flipped the case upside down. The first step was to revisit the crime scene. Babli and Nisha's house was locked, but strangely untouched. The kitchen smelled of rotting food. There was dinner on the stove, half prepared. That detail sent chills through the team. Why would two women prepare a meal and then vanish without even touching it? But the first real clue came from a young girl. A child's innocent recollection that cracked the entire case open. Babli's cousin Ashish remembered something odd from the day after the disappearance. He'd visited Malti, Babli's sister-in-law, who lived right next door. When he asked her about Babli and Nisha, Malti replied curtly from behind a closed door, saying she knew nothing. Suspicious, but not definitive, until Malti's daughter, speaking casually to Ashish, mentioned a name, Sanju. She said Sanju Chacha had visited their house the night Babli and Nisha went missing, and he wasn't alone. Two other men were with him, and all three stayed late into the night. That one name, Sanju, sent shockwaves through the investigation. Who was Sanju? As police canvassed neighbors, the truth emerged. Sanju Triple was not a relative. He was a married man with children, a known troublemaker, and Malti's secret lover. The more they learned, the more twisted it became. Sanju had a history, a past marred by predatory behavior, and one particularly alarming incident where he'd eloped with a girl from his village who was never seen again. He had criminal tendencies and a dangerous charisma. And now, evidence showed he had been spending hours on the phone with Malti for days before Babli and Nisha vanished. The pieces began falling into place, but not gently. They crashed into a devastating picture. The turning point came when police brought Malti and Sanju in for questioning. What began as subtle observation quickly turned into intense interrogation. At first, both remained quiet, but their nervousness gave them away. As pressure mounted, their walls crumbled. Malti broke first. Her confession was ice cold. She had felt threatened, humiliated. Years ago, Babli had caught her and Sanju in an intimate moment. Babli had confronted her, threatened to expose the affair to the rest of the family and community. Even more damning, she had told their aging father-in-law, Pancham Lal. Since that day, Malti harbored a festering hatred for her sister-in-law. To her, Babli had stripped her of dignity. And worst of all, Malti believed Nisha had been spying too. In her twisted mind, Nisha and Babli weren't family anymore. They were threats. And so, Malti and Sanju plotted something unthinkable. They would erase those threats. The plan was meticulous. Malti drugged her own father-in-law, Pancham Lal, that night. She fed her daughters early and put them to sleep in another room. Then, with cold precision, she welcomed Sanju and his two accomplices, Raja and Diva, into her house. From there, they crossed silently into Babli's yard and waited. At around 10 p.m., Babli stepped out, perhaps toward the bathroom, unsuspecting. That's when they pounced, strangling her, silencing her forever. Inside, Nisha heard something. Concerned, she stepped out to check, unaware she was walking into a trap. She didn't even have time to scream. She too was strangled. Her life taken by hands she might have recognized. After the murders, the trio wrapped both bodies in sheets and stuffed them into sacks. In the cover of darkness, they transported the corpses to a remote location near a canal in Megawan, 800 meters off the main road. There, they dug a grave 5 feet deep, sprinkled salt to speed decomposition, and buried them. Nisha's body was placed above her mother's. For days, they pretended nothing had happened. But secrets rot faster than bodies. Once Malti confessed, the chain unraveled. Sanju, too, admitted everything, how he had promised his partners money, how they watched Babli and Nisha take their final breaths, how they buried them like forgotten garbage. His voice carried no remorse, only bitterness. It wasn't passion or desperation that led to the crime. It was vengeance. What shocked the investigators most wasn't just the brutality, but the planning. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment killing. It was a rehearsed, emotionless execution. Later, as police dug up the bodies with the help of laborers and local officials, villagers gathered around the site, gasping, weeping, unable to process what had happened in their own backyard. They watched as two lives, once full of dreams, one of a mother, the other of a daughter about to be married, were pulled from the ground like unwanted weeds. But while arrests were made and charges filed under multiple IPC sections, including 302 for murder, something far more chilling hung in the air. How had a woman, a mother of 3, found it in herself to orchestrate such evil? Was it just shame? Just revenge? Or was there something even darker at play? Something that no investigation could truly uncover? Can justice ever heal the hole left behind by betrayal? Can a sentence behind bars ever match the horror of 2 lives lost in the dark? The mystery of Nisha and Babli had been solved, or so it seemed. The killers were in custody, the bodies recovered, and the truth laid bare for all to see. But in the silence that followed, something still lingered in the air. A chilling thought that maybe, just maybe, the real horror wasn't the murders themselves, but how easy it had been for love to turn into hatred, and for hatred to destroy everything. After the confessions of Malti and Sanju, police arrested not only the 2 prime suspects but also the hired accomplices, Raja and Diva. Each one had played a role in executing a plan soaked in jealousy and cold revenge. Investigators wasted no time. Under sections including 302 for murder and several others under the Indian Penal Code, the case was filed, and the accused were presented before the court. The courtroom was tense. Emotions boiled beneath the surface. Family members wept silently, unable to reconcile the sight of someone they had once trusted, Malti, now accused of murdering her own niece and sister-in-law. Villagers, who once exchanged greetings and shared meals, now sat divided, disturbed, disillusioned. How could a woman raise her children by day and bury a body by night? Malti sat quietly in the dock, her face hardened. Sanju, once smug, now looked hollow. The accomplices barely spoke. Perhaps the weight of their actions had finally settled in. Or maybe they still didn't understand what they had taken from the world. A young woman who was about to be married, and a mother who had struggled her entire life to give her daughter a future. But justice moved forward. With solid forensic evidence, witness testimonies, and confessions, the prosecution made its case strong and swift. Babli's cousin Ashish, whose curiosity first triggered the real investigation, stood firm in court. The forensic team confirmed the identity of the bodies and supported the timeline of the crime. Police officers recounted the disturbing details of the plan, including how salt was used to accelerate decomposition, a detail that showed chilling premeditation. The judge listened, watched, measured every word, and when the verdict came, it landed like a stone. All 4 accused were found guilty: Malti Mehra, Sanju Triple, Raja Kaul, Deva Thakur, sentenced to life imprisonment for the brutal double murder. No leniency, no second chances. The crowd outside the court sighed, but it wasn't relief. It was a collective gasp of sorrow. Justice may have been served, but something irreversible had happened. Nisha and Babli were never coming back. A daughter's wedding had turned into her funeral, a family torn apart by nothing more than secrets, suspicion, and shame. Even as the accused were sent to Jabalpur Central Jail, there remained unanswered questions. What would happen to Malti's 3 daughters, now orphaned by their mother's crime? Could Pancham Lal, the frail old man who had lost his sons and now his granddaughter, ever find peace again? What would Sandeep carry for the rest of his life? The pain of a love lost without closure. In the days that followed, local papers ran headlines. News vans came and went. The story of Barela's double murder made national headlines, but for those who lived it, the story would never truly end. Every narrow street in Barela echoed memories. Every door now locked a little tighter. Trust was broken, not just within one home, but across an entire neighborhood. And yet, beneath all the tragedy, there was also strength. It was the strength of a few, like Ashish, like Apurva Kiladar, the DSP, who refused to let this story be swept under the rug, who fought for answers, no matter how terrifying they were. Perhaps what's most disturbing about this case is not the crime itself, but how ordinary the people involved were. A woman scorned, a man with a past, 2 hired hands chasing money, no monsters, just people. People who smiled by day and schemed by night. As the video of this case closes, one haunting truth remains. We often look for evil in strangers, in shadows, in darkness far from home. But what if the real danger is closer than we think? What if the person living behind the next wall already has a reason to hurt you? And more importantly, if someone you love disappeared tonight, would you know where to begin? Let us know in the comments. What would you have done in Babli's place? Could this tragedy have been avoided? Or was it already written in the silence between those Awog